Hello, my loves. Welcome to another episode of Lux and Leveraged with your host, Michelle Hext. Today, I've got a really good podcast for you. I started my program today called Legacy. And just to give you a quick heads up about what Legacy is, because I will run it again, it is a 10-day container where I drop 10 lessons over 10 days with homework. So there's typically an audio lesson, there is written content, and then there's a question or two or three that you need to answer by the end of the day. And the whole premise of it is that I'm helping the women inside the container to get clear about what their legacy brand will look like. And today was day one, and I dropped the 11 pillars of a legacy brand, and I feel like it's something that I want to share on here as well. Obviously, I'm not going to share the entire 10 days, and the way that I'm sharing it with you right now is going to be different to the way that I shared it inside the container, but I just finished recording it and I thought, oh, it's definitely something that you guys need to hear about. So that's what we're going to do today. So what is a legacy brand? I'm going to talk about that in a moment when I talk to you about the 11 pillars, but I want you to think about legacy coaching brands versus the, I guess, $2 store coaching brands. I want you to think about couture design, clothing, for example, a jacket versus fast fashion. Like, what's the difference? One is meant to be enduring and grow in status the longer you have it. So if you look at a Chanel jacket, for example, when you buy that Chanel jacket, will continue to hold its value, and it'll become more valuable as the decades roll on because it will be vintage. It will be something that you can't get anymore because of how old it is, right? And then if you look at a fast fashion jacket, it's going to come and go in a couple of seasons, right? And so for me, I have always been about, especially in the last 10 years and even more so over the last 5 years, really dug into the idea of a legacy premium brand, knowing that it is here to stand the test of time, knowing that my brand is not about jumping on the latest trends to make a buck. That just feels exhausting to me. It's about building a legacy that gathers strength with every year that it is around, because it becomes stronger, it becomes more of itself. Does that make sense? I just feel like there's so much noise and crap on the internet that I refuse to contribute to that. For me, I'm about building a legacy. And if you are too, I know you're going to love hearing about the 11 pillars. A true legacy brand is resonant. The first impression of a legacy brand is of trust and quality and status. And what you don't realize is that people are self-selecting before you even know their name, but they know yours. So people will come across a legacy brand like mine or potentially like yours, and they will self-select straight away. They'll be, I don't have the money for that, that's too whatever, right? It's just not, I don't feel like I'm there yet. And so there's a lot of self-selecting that goes on before people even reach out to you, because the brand does that for you. And I'm going to go back to my old using the Eiffel Tower as a metaphor. This is the metaphor that I used a lot when I had my brand, The Art of Kicking Ass Elegantly. A legacy brand stands tall and iconic, like the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It's undeniable, unforgettable, and it's impossible to overlook. People don't just stumble across the Eiffel Tower, they seek it out because it represents something important to them. And that's the same with a legacy brand. A legacy brand attracts legacy-worthy clients. A legacy brand calls us to mastery and excellence. It calls for us to continue to raise our standards and be that ambassador for our brand that is worthy of the brand that we're building. A legacy brand is here for a long time, and it's super conscious of its status at every turn. So a legacy brand doesn't want to damage the brand, and so it's not going to do anything that damages the legacy. And so this means that we aren't throwing shit at the internet and hoping it sticks every 5 minutes. All right, I'm going to take you through the 11 pillars of a legacy brand. The first pillar is simplicity in the business model. A legacy brand scales because it has a simple, clean, repeatable model, and it's not bloated and bogged down with complexity. Number 2 is mastery of one core problem. A luxury brand becomes the go-to because it solves one big problem better than anyone else, and it doesn't dilute itself and confuse the market. Number 3, systems for predictable outcomes. Legacy isn't luck. It's built on marketing, sales, and delivery systems that guarantee results, growth, and repeatability. So it's not just randomly, trying a million different things in a desperate kind of energy to find the thing that works. Sure, we're going to test and measure, but everything's measured. Everything is well considered. And anything that we decide that we're going to trial, once it's successful, it's systemized so that it can be repeated without reinventing the wheel. It's me. Leadership and authority is the 4th pillar. Legacy brands are always led by a strong, visible ambassador who embodies the brand, commands trust, and is the obvious expert. Number 5 is frameworks. Legacy brands codify their knowledge into frameworks, models, and methods that can be further developed and scaled. Prestige is the 6th pillar. Legacy brands are associated with influence and status. They create an aura that elevates everyone connected to them. Excellence is the 7th pillar. Legacy brands don't just meet standards, they set them. They are relentless in raising the bar, refining their craft, and delivering world-class experiences at every touch point. 8 is luxury. Legacy brands deliver not just value, but an experience that feels elevated, intentional, and exclusive. Quality. Legacy brands maintain uncompromising standards in everything they produce, from the product, the messaging, and the delivery, ensuring long-term trust and reputation growth. Number 10 is reputable. Legacy brands build credibility that stands unshaken. They are recognized, respected, and referred to as the benchmarks in their niche. And 11 is status. Legacy brands signal status. Being seen to work with, endorsed by, or associated with them signals achievement and authority for the people that are investing in them. And so I think these pillars are definitely something that if you have a legacy brand should be aspiring to. And it doesn't mean that you have to come out of the gate and try to nail and say you wanted to measure your adherence or your progress on each of those models. Say, number 1, the simplicity in the business model. Maybe right now things feel pretty scattered to you. You've got a bunch of programs that are half finished, or you've run before and they need updating, or you can't decide where it fits, and it's kind of confusing. So you might be at a 2 out of 10 right now. It doesn't mean that you need to be at a 10 today, right? It just means that the first thing that you need to do is create simplicity, create this awareness around simplicity versus complexity. And where are you getting bogged down in your business? Where is it confusing and overwhelming? And what is going to break if I try to scale right now? And then you get to think about what feels like a simple business model for me right now. What feels like an elegantly simple, a sophisticatedly simple business model that lights me up right now? What does that look like? What does the vision of that look like? And once you've got that vision in place, you can start to think about, well, what do I need to do? And typically it's going to be starting with, what do I need to remove from what I have right now? Because complexity comes when we've got too many moving parts and we're trying to be too clever. What needs to go? And yeah, sometimes releasing programs, releasing offers, and focusing on one thing can feel scary. It can also feel like we're losing part of ourselves. When I finally shut the doors for good on the 5K formula for coaches, that, I had some feelings about it. I trademarked it, like it had everything going on, but it just wasn't a fit anymore. And so I had to let that go in order to simplify so that what I had created could grow. And so you would go through that exercise with every pillar, right? So if you looked at mastery of one core problem, well, what is the problem that you're solving? What is the problem that you want to solve? What is the problem that you are so good at solving that it doesn't feel like work? You don't have to labor over it because it's second nature to you. And you might, again, feel a little bit contracted, like, what? I don't want to let that go. I solve so many problems and I solve them so well. And honestly, if you are the multi-passionate entrepreneur who wants to chase a million different things, I am not for you, because that is not how I do business. It's not how I teach it. I teach people how to become the one choice for the people in their orbit, because they are the expert at solving this problem. They're the go-to. And so you would ask yourself, I'm assuming you aren't multi-passionate and willing to chase a million different ideas, because I'm probably not going to resonate with you anyway. Or maybe you have been that person and you're exhausted and you're like, I just need to simplify my life and I need to simplify my business and I need it to feel clean and uncluttered, and maybe it's time and you've come across this podcast at the perfect time. And I'm all about it. I'm all about simplicity, because simplicity scales and simplicity doesn't give you headaches. So again, you would look at it, okay, so what's the problem that I want to solve? And know, if you develop over the next 12 months the skills and the expertise around solving that one problem, you will be creating something that other people will not take the time to do. So think about that. And then, I'm not going to go through every one of the pillars to do this, but I want you to really spend time with each of the pillars and rate yourself out of 10. And ask yourself these questions, this is where I am. What does the vision for being a 10 in this pillar look like? And then sorry, I just had a text message come through. I thought I had it on quiet. Yeah, what are the moves that you need to make to move things in the direction of a 10? I promise you that when you build a legacy brand that solves one problem and you have a simple business model, life will begin to feel a lot easier. But aside from that, this is a brand that's going to be noticed. It's going to endure. All of I think about, say 100 of the entrepreneurs that I was cutting my teeth with as I was coming up in the high ticket space, probably 90% of them are gone now because they didn't enact these 11 pillars. They didn't action them. They didn't really sit with them and think about them. They were thinking things like, I should be on TikTok. I should be on here. I should be doing this. I should be doing reels. They were thinking tactics. They weren't thinking strategy, and they weren't looking at the long-term repercussions of those things, and they burn themselves out and they are no longer. And that's not what I want for you. I want business to feel luxuriously spacious and elegantly simple and elevated and setting standards for your industry, right? For your niche in the industry, for all of us. I want to eradicate the $2 stores or the fast fashion coaching brands and help those that are really truly willing to build a legacy and not be pulled in a million different directions at every turn with every platform launch or whatever it is. I want you to know that it doesn't need to be that way. I look back at the strategies that I was teaching when I was teaching martial arts school owners how to develop premium niche coaching martial arts businesses. The strategies are the same, but the tactics we use may have shifted, but the framework is essentially the same. It stands the test of time, and that's what a legacy does. When you have a framework that systemizes and codifies your knowledge, then you can take that framework anywhere. So you might have, you figure out the problem that you are incredible at solving, and you figure out how you solve that problem, and you build a framework around that. And then you can make that framework work for a one-on-one coaching offer. You can make it work for a mastermind. You can make it work for a book. You can make it work for anything, right? The money is in the framework. And you can't get to framework unless you understand the problem that you solve, right? Anyway, they are my 11 pillars for building a legacy brand. And I hope they resonate with you. I want you to sit with those pillars. I want you to soak them in, and I want you to think about moving the needle on them. Set yourself some priorities. Which pillar feels like the biggest priority for you right now? And then build the vision around it, and then start making your moves. Now, as I mentioned at the start, Legacy is a 10-day container where I work with only 10 coaches every day. We do content for 5 days, then we take the weekend off, and then we do content for another 5 days, and that's a wrap. And the reason that I'm running these containers is because I know these days that there are a lot of smoke and mirrors on the internet. And if I look at my pillars and I look at number 4, which is leadership and authority, that is my area of struggle. I wouldn't say struggle, and I've got to stop saying that. It's my area of greatest improvement. And I had a bit of an aha a few weeks ago where it's like, well, I can talk about how good I am at this stuff, or I can actually show people, I can actually be in it. And so my way of working on pillar 4 and making progress in it is to do what I've been doing, which is really leveling up my free content game. So if you're not inside of my Facebook group, the Lux and Leveraged Society, you need to come on over. I'm running a training usually about once a week or every 2 weeks, something like that. And it's where I am delivering the sort of content that other people would charge you for. So come on in. Let me show you that I am a master of my craft rather than tell you about it. The Legacy 10-day container is where I get to do that and go deeper again and spend time with 10 amazing humans who get to experience what it's like to have me in their world every day for 10 days. And Legacy is part of a trilogy. So if you've missed out on Legacy, the next one that I'm going to be launching is called Influence. And that is all about precision messaging and being that authority and talking about how we get to do that even when we don't feel like we want to show up, and even when we feel like we have imposter syndrome, all those things. And then the third one in the trilogy is mastery. And so that's for people who want to learn how to develop their coaching and mentoring skills, how they can deal with challenging situations, how they can be a master of their craft. And so keep an eye out on those pillars. If you are not on my email list or following me on my socials, then I recommend that you get on it. Or if you're listening to this podcast, I'll be making those announcements. So try not to miss a week, and you'll always find the links in the show notes. As always, I would love to hear from you on the gram or on Facebook. You can message me as well. So come on over, find me, and shoot me a message. Let me know what you thought about this week's podcast. And I will see you next week.